So, you live alone? Cue the awkward silence, the raised eyebrows, and the unspoken judgment. If you've ever felt like the world doesn't get why a woman would choose solitude over settling, this video is for you. If your worth has ever been questioned just because there's no one next to you at the dinner table, this video is for you. If you've been told your life is missing something just because there's no boyfriend in your bio, let me be the first to say they're wrong. In this space, it's for you. This video is not for people who need validation from a +1. It's for the woman who's tired of explaining herself, tired of being asked, but don't you want someone? Tired of people assuming that happiness is only real when it's shared. No, happiness is real when you define it. Joy is real when you create it. Love is real when you give it to yourself first. If you're building a life that's peaceful, powerful, and completely your own, this video will feel like a deep breath, a reset, a reminder that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. You don't need to be in a relationship to be whole. You just need to be in alignment with you. So press play, stay with me. Let's talk about what it really means to live alone, and not just survive, but thrive. Being single isn't just a relationship status. For many women, it's seen as a flaw to be fixed. The moment you reach a certain age, it's like the world flips a switch. Suddenly, your accomplishments are measured less by your career, your growth, or your joy, and more by whether you have a ring on your finger or a man by your side. The stigma around being single is quiet, but it's everywhere. It shows up in the questions at family gatherings. Still single? As if being in a relationship is the only valid chapter in your life worth celebrating. It shows up in the glances when you dine alone, the assumptions people make when you say you live by yourself. They think it must mean you're lonely or broken or that you've been left behind. But what if being single is a conscious choice? What if it's an act of strength, not sadness? No one talks about the courage it takes to walk alone in a world that tells you you're supposed to be paired. It takes guts to say no to almost good enough, to not settle for a half love just to feel whole. Society praises women who are chosen, but it rarely praises women who choose themselves. And the deeper issue, that stigma isn't just coming from others. Over time, we start to internalize it. You might find yourself thinking, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have what she has? You scroll through social media and it feels like everyone is in love, engaged, starting a family. You begin to believe you're behind in some invisible race, even though deep down part of you knows that comparison is stealing your peace. But let's be honest, most of what you're seeing is a highlight reel. What they post online doesn't show you the full story. It doesn't show the arguments behind closed doors, the unspoken compromises, the loneliness that can still exist inside a relationship. Being partnered doesn't automatically mean being fulfilled, and being single doesn't automatically mean you're not. Yet the world doesn't celebrate that enough. It doesn't applaud the woman who wakes up alone, but still gets up and goes after her dreams. It doesn't recognize the beauty of quiet mornings, unshared beds, and evenings filled with peace, not performance. There's power in being single that no one talks about. The power to hear your own voice clearly, to grow without interruption, to evolve without shrinking to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. The stigma around being single only holds power when we let it define us. But once you start to see the truth, that you're not lacking, that you're not behind, that you're not less, the stigma starts to lose its grip. Because what you're really doing isn't waiting for someone. What you're doing is living fully, unapologetically, on your own terms. You're not missing out. You're waking up. There's no timeline to follow, no rule book that says love has to look a certain way. And maybe, just maybe, love isn't just found in someone else. Maybe it's found in moments of freedom, in clarity, in growth, in you. Being single doesn't mean you're unloved. It means you haven't compromised your standards. It means you're not afraid to be with someone truly aligned, even if that means being alone until then. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. Solitude can feel intimidating, especially at first, when the noise dies down, when no one's texting, calling, or coming home. You're left with the one person. Society rarely teaches you how to sit with yourself. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying. We've been conditioned to believe that quiet means something's wrong, that silence equals emptiness. But solitude isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self. And when you stop running from that space and start leaning into it, something magical begins to happen. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel restless. You'll reach for distractions, the TV, your phone, a scroll through someone else's curated version of life. But if you can pause long enough to sit in that discomfort, you'll start to realize that solitude is not a void. It's a mirror. It shows you who you are when no one's watching. It reveals your thoughts, your patterns, your wounds, but also your wisdom, your intuition, your strength. You begin to hear your own voice again, not the version you perform for others, not the one that's shaped by expectations, but the raw, unfiltered one that says, "This is what I need." That voice is your compass. It doesn't scream, it whispers, and you can only hear it in the stillness. Embracing solitude isn't about isolation. It's about intention. It's about making peace with your own presence. Because once you do, you stop chasing company just to fill a space. You stop confusing attention for affection. You stop reaching for love that costs you your peace. And instead, you start choosing people, environments, and energy that actually feel aligned. Solitude teaches you boundaries. It teaches you that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. It gives you time to heal without interference, to grow without compromise, and to finally become someone you actually enjoy being with. People often think that women who live alone must be cold, hard, or emotionally unavailable. But that couldn't be further from the truth. It takes deep emotional strength to hold your own space, to walk into your home, hear nothing but your thoughts, and still feel safe, whole, and complete. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Because here's the truth. If you can learn to love your life in solitude, you'll never settle out of fear again. You won't say yes just to avoid loneliness. You won't lower your standards just to feel chosen. You won't bend yourself out of shape just to fit into someone else's idea of happiness. You'll know how to give yourself everything you once thought had to come from someone else. You'll start to find joy in the little things. Making your own dinner and dancing while it cooks. Sleeping diagonally across the bed. Creating your own rituals, your coffee in the morning, your music at night, your space, your vibe, your rhythm. You become your own sanctuary. And when you do that, love becomes something you share, not something you seek. You're no longer looking for someone to complete you. You're whole already. Anyone who comes into your life now, it's not because you need them. It's because you want them. That's the difference. Fear fades the moment you realize solitude isn't a punishment. It's an invitation to meet yourself, to know yourself, to fall in love with the life you're creating. One moment, one breath, one beautifully quiet day at a time. The daily life of a woman who lives alone is often quieter than most people expect. But it's not empty, it's intentional. Every morning begins on her own terms. No alarms from someone else's schedule. No rushed conversations or compromises. Just her waking slowly to the light slipping through her curtains, stretching into the space she's claimed as her own. There's a certain peace in waking up alone, in knowing that the first voice she hears is her own. She moves through her space with a rhythm that's completely hers. Maybe it's music playing softly as she makes her coffee. Maybe it's silence and she prefers it that way. Her morning ritual isn't about rushing out the door for someone else. It's about grounding, centering. She waters her plants, opens a window, lets the air shift the energy in the room. These are her moments. Simple, quiet, powerful. Throughout the day, she makes choices that reflect her values, her pace, her priorities. There's no one to impress. No one to explain anything to. If she wants to work from the couch in her favorite hoodie, she does. If she wants to take a midday walk, journal, cook something just for herself, there's no guilt, no negotiation. Her time is her own. She learns to enjoy the little luxuries that often go unnoticed when life is shared. Lighting a candle because she wants the scent, not because someone's coming over. Making a dinner that's beautiful even if it's only for one. Taking up the entire bed at night and stretching across it with freedom. There's a kind of empowerment in not waiting to do special things until someone else is there to experience them. She realizes she's enough of a reason, but of course not every moment is glamorous. There are days when the silence feels heavier, when she wishes she had someone to talk to the moment something beautiful or hard happens. There are evenings when she gets home and instinctively wants to share her day, only to remember there's no one there. And in those moments, she doesn't run from the loneliness. She meets it. She breathes through it. She honors it as part of the path, not a flaw in it. She finds connection in new ways, in friendships that go deeper, because she's not pouring herself into a relationship just to feel valid, in phone calls that matter, in time with herself that brings clarity, not confusion. Her solitude becomes a sanctuary, not a sentence. There's strength in the way she handles things alone, fixing the light bulb, managing her finances, dealing with a flat tire, or carrying heavy groceries. These may seem small, but every act of self-sufficiency builds her confidence, not because she wants to do everything alone forever, but because she knows she can. She's not waiting for someone to show up and change her life. She's already living it, fully, authentically, on her terms. And the more she leans into that, the more she stops looking outside herself for permission to feel whole. Her daily life isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about honoring herself. It's peaceful, sometimes lonely, often joyful, and always real. And maybe, just maybe, it's not a life she's surviving, it's one she's starting to fall in love with. Society has a loud voice. It starts early, whispering into your ears through fairy tales and love songs, through the movies that always end with the couple finally getting together, like that's the goal, the destination, the prize. And before you even know it, you've internalized this idea that your life begins when someone else chooses you. That love, especially romantic love, is the ultimate validation of your worth. So what happens when you don't follow that path? Suddenly that loud voice turns into a question, sometimes subtle, sometimes sharp. Why don't you have a boyfriend yet? Are you too picky? Don't you want kids? Aren't you worried about getting older? It's relentless. And it comes from every direction. Family, friends, strangers, even social media. The pressure to be in a relationship is baked into nearly every social norm. Couples vacations, +1 invites, holidays that feel like they're only for lovers. It's like the world keeps telling you that life isn't truly happening unless you're experiencing it with someone else. But here's the truth. Society's expectations don't have to become your reality. What if what you want looks different? What if you're more interested in peace than partnership? What if your dream life isn't a wedding, but waking up every day in a space that feels calm, free, and yours? What if you crave adventure, purpose, growth, not because you're waiting to share it with someone, but because those things light you up from the inside out? There's power in asking yourself, what do I actually want when no one else is watching? That's where freedom begins. In the quiet, private honesty between you and your intuition. It might tell you that you want to focus on your career, build a business, travel solo, take care of your mental health, or just enjoy your life without the weight of another person's needs. And that doesn't make you cold or selfish or broken. It makes you honest. The problem is, society doesn't always reward honesty. It rewards conformity. It celebrates women who finally settle down, not women who rise up for themselves. And that's why the disconnect can feel so heavy, because you're not just choosing a different path. You're breaking an unspoken rule. You're choosing yourself in a world that tells you someone else should always come first. But when you start to truly listen to what you want, that noise begins to fade. The opinions become less loud. You stop measuring your life by someone else's milestones. And suddenly, your desires don't feel selfish. They feel sacred. They become your compass. You don't have to want what everyone else wants. You don't have to chase what doesn't align. And you definitely don't have to explain your piece to people who haven't found theirs yet. Because at the end of the day, it's not society that has to live with your choices. It's you. And you're allowed to want a life that feels deeply, authentically yours, even if no one else understands it yet. So if your heart feels lighter when you're alone, if your dreams grow bigger without the distraction of a half-invested relationship, if your energy comes back when you're not trying to constantly prove your worth to someone else, maybe it's not that you're behind. Maybe you're ahead, just on a different timeline. One that's not driven by what society says, but by what you truly want. There's a kind of emotional strength that only develops when you face life without a safety net. When you go through hard days with no one to lean on but yourself. When you celebrate victories alone, cry alone, pick yourself back up alone. And in that solitude, something unshakable starts to form inside you. The world often treats relationships as emotional armor, like being with someone makes you more stable, more secure, more complete. But the truth is, some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones walking through life without a partner, building that foundation from within, not because they never wanted love, but because they refused to rely on someone else to feel whole. Emotional strength isn't loud. It doesn't always look like confidence or independence on the outside. Sometimes it's quiet. The woman who gets out of bed even when no one's waiting for her. The one who talks herself through her own breakdowns. The one who handles heartbreak, disappointment, and uncertainty without texting someone to fix it for her. That strength is invisible to most, but it's powerful beyond words. She knows how to hold space for her emotions without spiraling. She understands that self-soothing is a skill, not a backup plan. She can feel sad, lost, or overwhelmed, and still choose to show up for herself. That's not weakness. That's a deep, grounded resilience. The kind that doesn't crumble when things get hard, because she's already faced hard things and learned how to survive them. Without a partner, you learn how to become your own anchor. You become fluent in your own emotional language. You don't look outside for validation every time you feel uncertain. You trust your gut. You process your pain. You heal your wounds, one layer at a time, without the comfort of someone else's arms, but with the strength of your own two hands. And no one talks about how much work that takes. It's not easy. There are moments when you wish someone could just hold you, when the nights feel too long and your thoughts get too loud, when it would be so much easier to distract yourself with company instead of facing what's bubbling inside. But emotional strength isn't built through avoidance. It's built through confrontation, through compassion, through choosing to sit in your truth even when it's uncomfortable. You become the kind of woman who can walk through fire and not burn down, who can cry on her kitchen floor and still rise in the morning with clarity in her chest, who knows that her softness isn't a weakness, it's a form of bravery. You learn that emotional strength doesn't mean being unbothered, it means being unbroken. And when love does come, if it comes, you won't hand over your soul for safety. You won't collapse into someone just because they offer comfort. You'll stand beside them whole and rooted, because you've already learned how to hold yourself. That's the kind of strength no one can take from you. Peace doesn't always come wrapped in silence. It's not just the absence of chaos or noise. True peace is an inner stillness, the kind that exists even when life gets loud. It's when your soul stops running, when your mind isn't always chasing, fixing, or proving something. It's when you can sit with yourself and not need anything to change in order to feel okay. And that kind of peace, it doesn't come from being in a relationship, it comes from knowing who you are without one. Peace is walking into your home and feeling safe, not just because the door locks, but because you're not at war with your own mind anymore. It's creating a space that reflects your energy, lighting a candle, playing your favorite song, wearing whatever makes you feel good, because no one's there to judge, compare, or interrupt. You start realizing that the most healing thing in the world is to feel at home within yourself. Then comes freedom, the kind that isn't loud or rebellious, but soft and steady. The freedom to choose, to wake up and decide how your day feels, to follow your curiosity, to create your own routines without having to fit into someone else's. You eat when you're hungry, rest when you're tired, and dream without limits. You stop performing for approval. You stop shrinking yourself to fit expectations. You breathe without asking permission. It's the freedom to say no without guilt, to say yes without second guessing, to walk away from anything that doesn't nourish you. And most of all, it's the freedom to be exactly who you are, without apology, without explanation. And from that peace and freedom, self-love begins to grow. But here's the thing, self-love isn't a spa day. It's not filtered Instagram quotes or pretending to be happy all the time. Real self-love is deeper. It's radical honesty. It's forgiving yourself for what you didn't know back then. It's holding your heart on the hard days and choosing to believe you're still worthy, still enough, still lovable, even when no one else is saying it. It's doing the hard work to understand your own patterns, your wounds, your needs. It's not about becoming someone better. It's about finally seeing yourself clearly and saying, I love her anyway, even on the messy days, even in the moments when you feel like a storm. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you you're beautiful, intelligent, valuable, because you've already claimed it for yourself. And in that moment when you can look in the mirror and not flinch, not criticize, not rush past, that's when self-love becomes real. Peace, freedom, and self-love, they feed each other. When you protect your peace, you preserve your energy. When you choose freedom, you take your power back. When you practice self-love, you stop settling. You stop abandoning yourself just to be accepted. You no longer chase what doesn't reflect your truth. You start building a life that feels like yours, not a copy-paste version of someone else's timeline. You define success differently. You value quiet joy, deep rest, sacred solitude. You realize that being single isn't something to fix. It's a gift that allows you to find your center without distraction. And that's the moment everything shifts. Because now love is a bonus, not a rescue plan. Your happiness isn't conditional. Your value isn't negotiable. Your life isn't on pause. You're not just existing, you're blooming. There comes a point in every woman's life when she stops asking, am I good enough? And starts asking, is this good enough for me? That shift, quiet yet seismic, is where her power begins. And it all starts with setting personal standards. Personal standards aren't walls to keep people out. They're gates that only open for what aligns. They're not about being picky or hard to please. They're about knowing your worth so deeply that you'd rather wait alone in peace than settle in chaos, because you've finally learned not everyone deserves access to you. Setting standards is about saying no to relationships that drain you, conversations that belittle you, and energy that leaves you second-guessing your own magic. It's about walking away from almost, maybes, and bare minimums, not because you're cold or unkind, but because you've tasted your own growth, your own healing, and you refuse to let someone come in and unravel it. You realize that love is not enough without respect, that chemistry isn't enough without consistency, that good intentions mean nothing without follow-through. And so you set the bar, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. Because when you've spent enough nights picking up the pieces of your own heart, you no longer hand it to people who show up with scissors. And at first, setting those standards can feel isolating. People might call you too much, too guarded, too independent. But what they're really saying is, you won't let me get away with giving you less. And you won't, because you've been there. You've felt the sting of being chosen for convenience, not commitment. You've tolerated crumbs and called it love, but not anymore. Now you're the woman who checks in with herself before saying yes, who asks, does this feel good? Instead of, will they like me? You've stopped performing, pleasing, bending just to keep the peace. You've learned to sit with discomfort instead of begging to be chosen. You know the cost of abandoning yourself, and you're not willing to pay it again. And here's the truth. When you raise your standards, you raise your energy. You stop entertaining what drains you. You attract people who meet you where you are, not those who expect you to dim just so they can shine. You stop chasing, stop explaining, stop proving. You simply become, and the right people rise to meet you. This kind of clarity is magnetic. It's not loud, not aggressive. It's a quiet knowing, a calm, unshakable presence that says, I am not for everyone, and that's okay. And when someone does come along who fits, who truly aligns, they'll recognize your standards not as a challenge, but as a mirror. They'll meet them because they've done their own work too. Setting personal standards isn't about finding the perfect partner. It's about being the kind of woman who never forgets what she deserves. And in a world that constantly tries to convince you to shrink, lower, or wait, that kind of self-respect, that's your superpower. There's a huge difference between loneliness and independence, but it's easy to confuse the two, especially when you're used to the company of others. Society often mixes them up too, painting independence as a form of loneliness, when in reality, They are two completely different experiences. And understanding that difference can change how you experience both. Loneliness feels like emptiness. It's that aching desire for connection that leaves you feeling hollow. It's when you find yourself wishing that someone else would fill the void, complete the puzzle. Loneliness can creep up at any time, when you're alone at home on a Friday night, when everyone else is paired up, when you walk through a crowd and still feel like an outsider. It's painful because it comes from a place of wanting something, an external validation, a connection answer. And no matter how much you try to distract yourself, you can't escape the gnawing feeling that something is missing. But independence is different. Independence doesn't feel like an emptiness. It feels like freedom. It's the ability to stand on your own 2 feet, not because you have no other choice, but because you have learned to be enough for yourself. Independence is the strength to walk through life on your own terms, whether or not anyone is beside you. It's the power to make decisions without needing anyone's approval. To live with integrity and confidence, knowing that your happiness isn't contingent on anyone else's presence. The beauty of independence is that it allows you to feel all the emotions, including loneliness, without being consumed by them. When you're independent, loneliness doesn't define you. It's just one of the many emotions you experience, and you know how to navigate through it. You don't rely on someone else to fill the gaps in your soul. You fill them yourself with self-awareness, creativity, and the understanding that being alone doesn't mean being incomplete. In fact, being independent teaches you to embrace those moments of loneliness. You stop running from them, stop numbing them with distractions. Instead, you learn to sit with your own company and find peace in it. You realize that loneliness is just a feeling, not a permanent state. You start to appreciate the stillness that comes with being alone. You discover how much space you have for your own thoughts, your own passions, your own growth. You finally understand that your worth isn't tied to the presence of others. It's intrinsic. It's yours always. This doesn't mean that independence is easy or free from moments of vulnerability. There are times when the silence feels heavy and the absence of a partner makes your heart ache. It's natural to crave connection, but the difference is that when you're independent, you can crave connection without losing yourself in it. You don't feel desperate or incomplete. You know that loneliness is temporary and that you are okay in the meantime. You're okay with yourself. The challenge is that the world often doesn't celebrate independence in women the way it celebrates relationships. We're told we need to be in a partnership to be happy, to be validated, to be whole. But when you choose independence, you start realizing that happiness doesn't require anyone else. It's a choice, a practice. You start building a life that nourishes you from the inside, where you're the one who shows up for yourself every day. And when someone does come into your life, they don't complete you. They add to the fullness of what you've already built. Loneliness then becomes less of a curse and more of a teacher. It's in those moments when you feel the ache of missing someone that you learn more about yourself. You learn your triggers, your needs, your desires. You learn to cultivate joy in your own presence. And you learn to love yourself fiercely, without apology, without compromise. Independence isn't about being hard or detached. It's about being so grounded in your own being that you no longer see your worth in the eyes of others. It's about knowing that you're enough, whether you're alone or with someone else. And once you embrace that, loneliness doesn't have power over you. You realize that in your solitude, you are not lost. You are found. As we wrap up today, I want you to take a moment to reflect on what we've talked about. You are worthy not because of who is beside you, but because of who you are on your own. In a world that constantly tells you to chase love, approval, and validation from others, you have the power to break free and create a life that is authentically yours. Let's be clear. Your journey is not defined by whether or not you're in a relationship. It's defined by the choices you make to honor yourself. It's about the courage to walk your path, even when it feels lonely. It's about the strength to face your own fears and doubts and still move forward. It's about loving yourself so fiercely that nothing, no relationship, no opinion, no expectation can shake your sense of worth. You are not defined by your relationship status. You are defined by your resilience, your growth, and your unwavering belief in your own potential. It's time to stop waiting for someone to come along and fix you, and start realizing that you are already whole. Every step you take on your own is a step toward the person you were always meant to be. Strong, independent, and unapologetically true to yourself. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the weight of societal expectations, know this: you don't owe anyone an explanation for living life on your own terms. Embrace your solitude. Embrace your independence. Let it be the foundation upon which you build your dreams. You are building something far more valuable than a relationship. You are building a life that is yours, one that doesn't need anyone else to define its worth. Take this moment, and remind yourself that you are worthy of everything you desire, but you don't need anyone else to complete you. You are whole. You are enough. And the best part, your journey is just beginning. Embrace it with confidence, knowing that the strongest and most powerful relationships you'll ever have will be the ones you cultivate with yourself. So go ahead, keep walking your path, because you've got everything you need within you.